Audio file from 7/9/2012. I believe it's at Club Med. 78, the file number 78 and 79 are dedicated to Club Med. I'm just going to play 78 because what I want you to do is I want you to pay close attention to how Gang Stalker is constantly said by three people. It appears that two of them are talking together close by me, and a third party is saying it from a distance to act as a compliment in reference to how the two will say it intermittently within their conversation they're having with each other, and then either right before or after they say it, the person in the background will say it too. And I believe that this is done in order to keep the brain preoccupied constantly with the fact, whether it's subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously, concerning hearing it. Because one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, because they have no reason to be aware of it, is like, you know how like when you're sitting on a beach and you're reading a book, and there was a book I read one time called The Right Brain and the Unconscious. And what it does, your brain, even though you're reading, because language is the left area of the brain, and the right area of the brain is where your unconscious awareness is dominant. Okay? Your left brain is where your conscious awareness is dominant through language. The right brain is responsible for your unconscious awareness. Okay? So when you're sitting there like eating your lunch or even scanning like a computer or even scanning a page in a book, you're kind of oscillating back and forth from left to right to left to right. Because when you're scanning, you're thinking about what you're scanning to look for, but you're kind of still intermittently a little bit in the unconscious awareness mode, okay? Because you're not like critically thinking. But the reason why I'm saying all this is to make a point. When a person is just sitting there eating their lunch, unless they're reading something, like really dedicated to reading something, they're basically more or less just eating their lunch, concentrating on eating their lunch, and their brain is unconsciously aware of what's going on around it. Just like when you're sitting at a beach, you're not thinking about anything particular, you're just sitting there watching the waves go by, watching the waves in the ocean, and possibly watching what's going on around you, and you're hearing the background noise unconsciously, like the birds chirping. In other words, you're not consciously aware of it, but you're unconsciously aware of it. In other words, you hear it, but you're not paying conscious attention to it. And this is what organized gang stalking expeditions, a huge aspect of their expeditions is about psychological operations. To make sure that either your consciousness or your unconscious awareness takes in the victimization and the abuse. That's why the constant psychic driving is perpetrated towards a target. And what is psychic driving? It's a technique that Irvin Cameron developed back in the late 70s in reference to trying to repatternize and reprogram a person's brain and their neural processes, okay, for programming and mind control purposes. And he wanted to literally try and figure out how neural pathways were created and how they could be programmed. And as a result of him trying to figure this out, he would take patients in mental hospitals and other hospitals, and even while they were sleeping, he would put headphones on them, and the headphones would be plugged into a tape recorder that was constantly repeating the same words or phrases or dialogue sets, okay, over and over and over again to try and repatternize the brain's neural pathways, unconsciously and consciously. Unconsciously when they would just be laying there, or when they would be sleeping, or consciously when they were told to focus on what they were hearing, okay? And this is what is called psychic driving, where they're trying to drive the psychology of a target in reference to the theme of what the target's hearing, okay? Now, in organized gang stalking expeditions, the theme of what is being said around a target, about a target, is always abusive, or either personally, or to remind them that this crime is happening towards them, concerning them, about them, from a distance, okay? By literally getting around the target and calling targets names that they've been sensitized to, that are personal about them, or that they want you to think is personal about them, or that are degrading, or they will literally even get around a target and re-mention things that happen to a target that they're responsible for, that they've associated themselves to, including rapes, assaults, or they'll literally get around a target and say gang stalking to remind them that they're a target of the actual crime that is responsible for rapes, assaults, robberies, thefts, staged vehicle accidents, the destruction of credit, robbery, anything. And since they know that the target knows that gang stalking is responsible for this, what they'll do through the stalking is they'll surveil a target where a target goes, especially if it's a place they go to on a routine basis every day or every other day for lunch. And when they see that target's getting up to go from one place to another, they basically, through deduction, think to themselves, well, they went there 3 times this week. What's the likelihood of them going there the same time? Again, at the same time today. And what they'll do is get people that they've used for the day to be at the place the target's going to. So when a target sits down to eat, they have to hear the word gang stalker around them. So at least their unconscious mind absorbs it. Because whether you're aware you're being abused, or whether you are aware that you're being abused or not, consciously or not, if you're hearing something that is associated to a traumatic event, a traumatic episode, or a traumatic life situation, if you're being constantly reminded about it, even unconsciously or subconsciously, the brain is storing it in and it's taking it in. Yeah. Listen to this. Listen to how much you hear gang stalking being said intermittently in the midst of conversations that they're pretending to have around them.
I need to use like $1 million equipment to measure something, and I'll get like 88 percent. And that's kind of a divide in the screen between theory and the practice. It's there everywhere, right? Unless you or somebody uses that algorithm in their feed to stop the But no one actually participates. There are like some students that usually participate every year in so even third grade some labs, like labs, when they participate. Because over the years they have tried to recording that.
Alright, now I think you heard enough. That was in the Club Med. I would be going to the Club Med practically every single day that I was on UCSD campus when I was allowed to go into the biomedical library before they created an incident and then tried to use that incident as a reason to ban me because they were being exposed online. You deliberate. Did you hear it? Thank you.